and he wants them marked with a black marker, 500, 500. This sequence of events basically is the way you set up and start running a job on our Pico slitter for inspection purposes and to give the customer exactly what he wants.
Today we're going to cover packaging labels into boxes, the correct boxes to use, the correct way to pack them, and the correct way to make sure they're stationary for shipping. First of all, see my label size. Chosen a box that I feel is appropriate, and if I get a 12 by 12 by 12 box, it fits these labels perfect, just as you see them here. Only difference is I've got about this much room in the box, so that'll allow me to put packing paper on the top. To begin with, I'll take my box, unfold it, making sure the number's on bottom. I'll make my box, folding both ends together, both ways. Making sure the box is good and square. I'll hold it in place, and with my tape gun, I'll tape the box, making sure the seam of the tape is across the middle, giving enough length on each side to support the weight that's in the box. Once I have the box completed, take my labels, and I'll place them in the box. They fit in the box good and secure, just like you see here, with not a lot of movement. You can see I'm positioning them in the box all in the same order. I'm trying to get as many labels into my box as I can. Now, it's very important that you stack these consistent. You can never, ever stack a roll on its side like this. If so, the weight of the next box on top can crush the cores. It's very important that they're stacked consistently in the same direction, one on top of the other. Ended up with 15 rolls of labels, 3 stacks of 5 high. If you look at it, you can see how I have a little extra room. To secure that the labels doesn't move around in shipping, and if they're stacked on top of each other, I will pack it with packing paper to give it some strength. Fill in the space and keep it good and tight. So I've got it good and tight. I'll fold the box together, making sure my tape seam is going the same direction as I originally started. I'll tape the box tight and shut. You can see how good and square it is, how good and tight it is, how the roll doesn't move around. This allows you to stack other boxes on top of them as high as needed, so it'll fit correct on the pallet, and so you can get as much shipped out on one pallet as possible. Okay, once my package is ready to be shipped, I'll take a sample of the label printed. I'll put it right here, the right-hand side. A lot of people will have thermal printers that will print a description label of the product itself. To give you an example, this description label tells everything there is about this label being packaged. Tells everything from the size of label, the type of label, 1/8" red border, 3 sides, the quantity per rolls, how many rolls per case. Put the finished product on the top right-hand side. Write the quantity in the underneath. This is 15 rolls. $2,000 per roll.
The thing we want to cover now is what would seem to be a pretty basic thing, but believe it or not, it is an issue in many, many plants. Simply wrapping a pallet. There's a few things you need to know about this, a couple of things that are real important anyway. Number one, anytime you're going to box a pallet up, this ain't too high of a box, but many times we go up as high as this. You need to layer and connect your stacking. As you can tell, things are turned, each layer is turned a different direction. If you stack straight up, straight up, straight up, straight up, and a truck or whatever hits a bump, then them pallets tend to fall one way or the other, and they bust apart, and it causes all kinds of problems for the customer when they get a pallet busted. You need to make sure you wrap it. It needs to have enough wrapping around it to where you can't see through it clearly. I like to get around it at least 4 or 5 good, strong, tight wraps. And I want to make sure that my boxes aren't moving at all. It's critical that you wrap your pallets correctly. It's critical that you stack them correctly. We don't want anything hanging off the edges of the pallets, and we don't want anything that's not tied in. So make sure you do it this way, and it'll help you in getting product back. What I'm going to do now is simply take a knot on this end. I'm just going to put it up under there so it'll hold for me. Now then, I'm going to simply wrap all the way down. And I want to pull tight after I get one wrap on it. Now then, I'm going tight. Connecting it to the pallet also. Now then, I want to go corners. Getting my top pieces. Now then, I'm going to go different corners. I want to have all my corners hit. And I'm going to make one last like this around the top and one last around the middle. Pull it tight. Push it down. Now that pallet will get there in that shape no matter what. Get your pallets wrapped this way. I think you have a lot more success.
Okay, today we're going to be changing over Dr. blades out of a Dr. blade assembly unit. You can see the blade in the unit itself, and this is an old used blade. You can see how it's rusted. And this blade here, you can see how it's worn real bad on this end. They should be flat and even. When the Dr. blades wear, they have a tendency not to cut the ink from the Analox rollers, which can cause with a print problem. So what we're going to do is disassemble a unit, change out a Dr. blade. As you can see, there's 3 set screws in the face of the unit. What I'm going to do is take my Allen wrench, and I'm going to take the smaller end to break each of the Allen screws loose. Once I get them broke loose, I'll use the bigger end to remove them. As I remove the 3 Allen screws, you can see I can pull the unit apart. In the middle of the unit is the Dr. blade itself. Being very careful with these blades because they will cut you. Remove the blade, and to sort of show you the blade, you can see how there's buildup and rust throughout the blade. Also, On the units that hold the blades, you can see the buildup, the ink buildup that's in here. It's very important that we take and we clean both sides of this unit, get it free from all dirt and grime. Okay, now that I've removed all the dirt, ink, dirtiness from the surface of my holder, I'm going to lubricate it with oil. Can never put too much oil on it. These blades have a tendency to rust real bad because they're metal. The oil sort of protects everything, gives it a good coating to prevent the rust. There again, you can see I'm putting plenty of oil on both sides of the unit. Once I have it good and coated, you can see how it shines up the surface of the holder itself. Now, what I have here is two different doctor blades. I have a beveled in doctor blade, which if you look in the reflection of the light, you can see the edge that is tapered. I have what is known as a radius doctor blade. When I say radius doctor blade, I mean each edge looks the same. It comes to like a rounded edge versus a beveled doctor blade, which comes to a tapered edge. Now on the radius doctor blade, doesn't matter which side you put in or which side is facing your analox roll. But on the beveled doctor blade, it's very important that you see the bevel itself and that the sharp edge is hitting the analox roll and the beveled edge is away from the analox roll. Putting this together in my unit, I know this is the front that hits the doctor blade itself. So once I find my bevel, which is here, I should be able to turn it around, mount my blade to the unit itself, to where when we assemble it, the beveled end is away from the analox roller. The sharp end will actually cut the ink from the analox roller. Knowing that this is correct, I'm going to flip it over, reassemble it by putting them together, and you can see here you have a pin system that the holes must meet up in. So it's very important as you put this together that the pins line up and everything fall in place. Want to very carefully make sure the blade is pushed up. Got to be very careful with these because they do have an edge and they will cut. Once I see my blade is positioned correctly and even, I'll proceed by putting the screws back in. Again, I'll start with the middle screw. I'll bring pressure down just to barely snug it. Go to my next screw, do the same. Go to the last screw. It's very important, if you noticed as I put this together and I push the blade up, I reassured that my blade itself was against the pegs. So in the process, I know my blade is even, they're against the pegs. My pressure on my screws are tight enough to hold the blade, but on the other hand, they're not so tight that when I go to change this next time, I'm going to strip out the Allen screw. Completed assembly with a new blade. You can see the beveled edge on the back side. the cutting edge